All right, we want to get right out to a press conference. We're learning more about a police-involved shooting. Let's listen in.
Bailey and Chief Terry, I am going to provide the facts as we know it right now. Just keep in mind that the information is subject to change as we further the investigation. After I get done briefing the facts, Chief Bailey is going to come up and provide some remarks. Good? Okay. On Thursday, December 19th, 2024, shortly after 2 p.m., Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department, IMPD Southwest District officers responded to the 300 block of South Warman Avenue on report of a person shot. At least 2 callers reported hearing shots fired, with 1 caller stating they believed 1 person had been shot. 1 caller was able to provide a suspect description and said the suspect had fired at least 1 shot at a neighbor's house. Officers responded to the incident were in their marked patrol vehicles when at least 2 shots were fired in their direction. The audio and video of the shots being fired at the officers was also captured on patrol vehicle in-car cameras. Officers exited their vehicle, spotted the suspect, and a short foot pursuit ensued. The suspect, an adult male, was located on the side of a home in the 300 block of Warman. Officers using distance and barriers got behind the vehicle for cover and ordered the suspect to get on the ground, at least 2 times. The officers observed a large machete in the suspect's hand still raised over his head and said he has a machete to alert other officers. As officers continued to give commands, the suspect ran at them with the machete still raised over his head and a firearm in his other hand. At this point, an officer-involved shooting occurred. While the male suspect was on the ground, he continued to reach towards one of the weapons despite the officer's verbal commands. 1 officer fired another round. Officers continued to giving loud verbal commands, "Put your hands up," while waiting for additional officers to arrive on scene. Once additional backup arrived, officers handcuffed the suspect and began providing medical aid to him. The suspect was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Officers located a firearm and a machete near the suspect. Photos will be attached to any briefing released. Shortly after the suspect was taken into custody, a female adult victim with injuries consistent with gunshot wounds was located in a nearby home's backyard. She was transported to a local hospital in stable condition. Investigators believe prior to the officer-involved shooting, the suspect shot the female victim and then attempted to flee the scene. Detectives are still working to determine the relationship between the suspect and the female victim. At least 2 other individuals also reported to detectives that the suspect had pointed a firearm in their direction prior to officers' arrival. No uninvolved community members were injured during this incident. The officers were equipped with body-worn cameras and in-car cameras, which were activated during this incident. The Indianapolis-Marion County Forensic Services Agency responded to identify and collect potential forensic evidence. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office responded to assist in the investigation. The Marion County Coroner's Office will be assisting and will determine the exact manner and cause of death. The Marion County Coroner's Office will release the decedent's name once the next of kin notification has been made. Detectives are confident there is no ongoing threat to the community. There is no suspect outstanding. The IMPD Critical Incident Response Team responded to the scene to conduct the criminal investigation. A separate administrative investigation is being conducted by the IMPD Internal Affairs. The officers who fired their guns have been placed on administrative leave, as is standard procedure for any officer-involved shooting investigation. The Civilian Majority Use of Force Board will conduct a mandatory hearing for any attempt deadly use of force against a person. This occurs after the conclusion of the criminal process. The Police Officer Support Team responded to provide peer support for officers. The IMPD Chaplain's Office responded to assist with those involved. IMPD Victims Assistance Unit responded to assist everyone. Anyone with information is asked to call Detective Larry Krasnoy at the Homicide Office by calling 317-327-3475. Alternatively, anyone with information can call Crime Stoppers anonymously at 317-262-TIPS. I'll now turn it over to Chief Bailey for remarks.
Chief Bailey, we know that there were...
One second.
once again, we find ourselves in a community that's been traumatized by violence. And my heart goes out to all those impacted, the victims that we have encountered here tonight, a neighborhood, our officers, our department, and of course, the family and friends of the deceased individual tonight as well. None of us want to be here at this moment talking about these things. You know, it's hard to put into words just how violence like this impacts communities and our police department, and it's been far too often over the past several years. And I've said it many times before, we have to find other ways to deal with our conflicts other than with the use of a handgun or any kind of weapon that puts a community in danger and puts our police officers in danger. None of them wake up in the morning and say they want to go to work and take a life. However, unfortunately, they were put in a pretty bad situation today, just doing their job and what we ask them to do, which is protect our community. With that, I'll take some questions.
You said your officer was not injured, but how is he doing, or he or she doing mentally?
Well, there were two officers that fired their weapons. They were shot at as they arrived to call for help. Person shot and shots fired. I've only been able to briefly speak to one of the officers. He is in as good a spirit as you can be. Obviously, he has to have time to process and deal with it. Deal with this entire situation. We'll make sure that they get.
All right, you are listening to Chief Chris Bailey talking about another police-involved shooting, the latest one this afternoon on Indy's southwest side. They say a shooting suspect ran at them with a machete and a gun, and officers shot him. More to come as we learn a bit.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.